And we're back for another episode, the Transition Podcast. Man to God, I'm your host, Rashad McCants. And I'm telling you right now, man, we got so many different special guests that have special talents. And there is none other than a good friend of mine that inside the tech industry is a software professional, and we're talking about transition into different industries. We're talking about transition in life, whether it be marriage, whether it be finding what you're really, really interested in and never really having any experience in going into those fields. All the different types of transitions that you could think of, we talk about here at the Transition Podcast. And today we have special guest Mike Green, and he is an entrepreneur. He has been running his own company, in Washington, and he's going to give us a little insight. Man, welcome to the show, Mike, and I appreciate you taking the time to grace us with your presence, brother.
No, thank you. I'm so appreciative to be here and spend a few minutes talking with you, and couldn't be more excited, Rashad. Thank you.
No doubt, man. Hey, and loosen up, man. This is going to be a very open dialogue. Definitely not just a question and answer. And this is something that we do, amongst each other as partners. We have open dialogue. We discuss the things that are passionate to us. And I want to get your thoughts on the evolution of starting a business. How can someone that's entering into not only the tech industry or the software industry, but just any industry period of business, what can they expect in today's world of transitioning into that, as far as, what to expect?
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think today, like unlike any other time in our history, there's so many opportunities. And at the same time, there's so many complexities to trying to do that. So it's such a crazy time to be an entrepreneur and to be trying to start your own business of any sort, whether it's brick and mortar or in the software industry, or even one of these emerging technologies that are out there. And there's so many of them between AI and ML and VR or mixed reality, as well as the whole world is on fire at the moment. We've got even in agriculture, things are changing so much with emerging markets like the cannabis market, as well as a lot of grow operations starting to switch to more indoor grows and go into IoT, which is just embedded systems that have sensors and allow you to automate more of your processes. So there's just so much technology out there, and there's so many tools that we can use as business owners to start something up and then scale it and ultimately allow it to run itself.
Right. So as far as testimonials go, when you started in the business, what point did you really know that this was a passion for you, that this would be something that you wouldn't want to really just throw off to the side and take up another hobby or something like that? At what point did you know, like, this is where I want to take my life's work?
That was really early as far as going into business, as far as wanting to start things up and take some harebrained idea and turn it into reality, make something out of nothing. Really young age. I think I tried it first when I was it's right after we got our first computer, and I'm 46. So it was back in the 80s. It was a Mac, and it was, it had a word processor on it. So I was able to make a newsletter for our school. So I created this newsletter. It was dumb. I called it Rumors. And I just looked for rumors in our school, and then I would, I'd publish them and sell it for 25 cents at a time, and got in trouble for that one. So I had to switch it over. And then I started selling candy to compete with, a lot of the sports teams would sell candy to fund themselves. And I got the great idea of going to Costco and buying a big bulk thing of lollipops and undercutting the prices and trying to sell them. So I always had some scheme. I was always trying to make a business, even at a very young age. And I always knew, even after I went into the professional world, that I wanted to start things and see them grow and try to turn them into a viable business. But on the flip side, at the same time, I never really knew what I wanted to do. There was no domain that I was able to just focus in on and truly be passionate about. I had a lot of different interests and loved a lot of different things. And so that gave me a little bit of ADD, if you will, where it's just like always a new shiny object.
Yeah.
So even to this day, like in college, I was a junior and I got a letter from my university saying that they were going to kick me out if I didn't choose a major. And I had no idea what I wanted to major in. So I've always been very curious and interested in a lot of things. So from a domain perspective, it's always been hard for me to just find one thing to do.
Right. And I think that when you talk about society and the millennials, their attention span, and you talk about so many things they want to do. They want to be YouTubers, they want to be influencers, they want to be athletes, they want to be models, they want to be chefs and cooks. But those things combine and run through their minds simultaneously, and so they can never really focus on one thing without another thing clashing into it and disrupting and distracting them. So really it's about focusing on that one passion, identifying that this could be something that you could be interested in, but then what is that next step? And I always talk about this during the podcast, is that transition is the first step in providing you with the indicators that this passion is something that you're going to go towards. This is your intuition saying we're on the right path. This feels good. After that, like, what, as a testimony for you, like, what was it that you felt that was like, all right, not only that I've chosen, I took this first step, I'm in this domain now. What do I need to do to show and prove? What is the mentality that I had to have going into this industry for the people who are interested in tech, app development, all that kind of stuff? Because every industry is different when it comes to transition, and what you're going to have to take from your boss, what you're going to have to be expecting from your teammates. What was it, something in this particular area that you found was your transition and accepting what you needed to adjust to?
Yeah, I think the first indicator is if you are procrastinating, that's probably a sign that it's not for you, right? Like I can't remember where I heard it, but I heard a good little quip that was talking about there's no such thing as procrastination. If you're procrastinating something, that just means you're not passionate about it. You're going down the wrong path. So if you're choosing between playing that video game and opening the computer and trying to learn Python, and you're choosing the video game, then maybe Python's not that interesting to you. Maybe that's not really your passion. Right. So I think if you get past that, if you see that you're really interested in it and you're taking the time and you're putting in the effort, then everything else becomes easy. So for me, I started my software career in data, as a data engineer, and really trying to understand data structures and how to take data from one place and move it into another one and integrate it with other parts of data. And to me, it was this giant puzzle, and it was fascinating. It was interesting. I would rather sit down and do that puzzle than a game of some sort or watching TV. And so to me, that was that first step, that first indicator in the transition was, and I came from a sciences background, geochemistry. And that one was a grind. I loved the big picture of like volcanoes and earthquakes and, the larger scale kind of 101 version of geology. But when you get deeper into it, mineralogy and sedimentary stratigraphy and starting to look at like one tiny little micro piece of it, it just wasn't that interesting. And so I found myself wanting to do anything other than that. Right. And whereas with data, man, I couldn't get enough of it. I was fascinated by it. So that really was kind of the first thing that drew me into it and started, like you say, that first step, that transition. Yeah. And then I was excited by it. When you have that excitement and that buzz, nothing can stop you because you want to do it. And you're going to follow your curiosity towards it. Well, what about, I have to imagine it was very similar to you, probably at a very young age too, when it came to like business and just starting to learn and understand it, that you just took an interest in that.
Absolutely, because it's new. When you find something new, you're intrigued in the beginning stages, and until the doubt hits, and that's what I want to touch on. What happens when the roadblocks hit, the challenges hit, the overwhelming doubt that you can get this done. It often happens in this generation quicker than it used to happen with us. And, we hit a roadblock and we still, saying we got to get through this. There has to be another way around this obstacle. Nowadays, we have a heightened state of mental health, which is being categorized as, you know, you can't do it because you don't have the help. The anxiety is kicking in because the pressure is too much and you need to release and breathe and all of these things. When we were growing up, that meant we were soft and that you didn't have tough skin and that you might need to do something else that was less strenuous. What do you think as far as the roadblocks and the doubts that creep in during this first step? How do you overcome something like that when you're dealing with data, data software, you're dealing with numbers and you're dealing with all this foreign Chinese, stuff that's just in your face and you're like, what is this? And it can be overwhelming to someone who's interested from the outside. You're like, I really want to know how to create an app. How could I do that? Then you start breaking down coding and they're like, no. No. How do you get past that first threshold of just that scared, feared, afraid moment that this is too much?
Yeah, which is, I mean, and that's such a real thing too, right? I think that's probably ended more people's dreams towards whatever industry they're going into than anything else, is that doubt and fear. And it's very real. But to me, the way I did it, and I recommend this for anyone that's trying to do something like this, is it's great to have a partner. It's great to have someone else that you're doing it with. And I'm not, mentorship is wonderful. And I also highly recommend find yourself. And when I say a mentor, I don't mean just someone to advise you, because there's a lot of people out there that can give you advice. When I say mentor, what I mean is someone who's done it before successfully. Yes. They've been down that road. They've walked it. They've reached the place you're trying to go. That's what you want as a mentor. You can have a great friend who's the smartest person you've ever met in the world, and they're willing to give you advice. But if they haven't done it before, that only takes you so far. So absolutely, it's great to have mentorship. That's important. But beyond that, and I think this is where a lot of people, maybe they don't get over the doubt, is it's also great to have someone that's in your shoes with you, going through it with you, a peer that you can do that with, that you can bounce ideas off of, and you can talk about your fears, and they're understanding it not because they've been there before, but because they're right now with you, right, facing that. And that helps. To me, that helps a lot.
Right. That's amazing, man. And it's a notable message that there has to be perseverance. There has to be perseverance. There has to be patience. There has to be some sort of team understanding. And that's the whole having someone that, because if you don't know anything about teamwork, partnership, sharing responsibility, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be very difficult for that person to even open up and trust another person to even help them, because they've never trusted anyone. They've always been independent. They've always been on it. It's like a tennis player playing in a doubles match for the first time. It's like, I don't get to hit the ball every time. I got to let you hit the ball sometimes. That then becomes a part of team. And once you understand it, maybe you play doubles more because you like it more, right? Because you don't have to depend on just you. And I think that's where our millennial society has driven us to independence, where we don't even trust partnership. We don't trust team because we want the glory. We want the credit. And that's the fear, is if I go into this space and I fail, I don't get any credit. And I've done and spent time where our whole society is now about recognition. And if I fail, I can't get recognized. But if I succeed, I can only succeed with teammates in which I have no experience in. And so it's so important to have everyone understand that partnership, teamwork, and unity amongst a group is always the best route towards success, because you get to bounce ideas, you get to see perspectives, and ultimately you don't have to do all the work yourself. Let's jump into the software engineering studio that you got, man, and what you got going on right now as far as life, business, and family.
Yeah, well, that's a lot, man. So yeah, I've got a small software engineering studio, 25 engineers out of Seattle. I have two business partners. So again, not anywhere near doing it alone. I founded it with one of my business partners, and we brought in the other one because we needed the help. You know, we were great when it came to the vision side of it, and you know, kind of building a team and growing it, and but running it, the day to day and the operations. You know, that's definitely, I'm not the most organized person in the world, and that's not my strong suit. So bringing someone else in that we could trust to help us with that was super important. And then from an engineering perspective, we've been really fortunate to be in the Seattle market as it's grown. And, you know, it went from really being Boeing and Microsoft dominated to Amazon dominated to now having pretty much any technology company you can imagine having at least a presence here. You know, Facebook and Google and SpaceX, and then there's just a ton of other really interesting companies to work with here in the Northwest. So that it's been a great place to set up shop, and also a great place to kind of spread our wings and go across the country and work with other organizations that can leverage some of the engineering talent that's here in Seattle. So from that perspective, it's been really amazing. Also to see the transition in the industry as more and more technology is automating and more things are becoming easier while other things are becoming more complicated.
Right.
So it's yeah, it's been a fun ride so far. We're small still. I'm hoping to grow it. A lot of times on the startup side, we're building software, and we love doing that more than anything else. We love making software. Pretty much any of the different languages that are commonplace in the industry at the moment. You know, if you're dealing with data and moving data from one place to another, Python's a big one. Here in the Seattle area, .NET, because that's part of the Microsoft stack, is a big one. But we use Golang and JavaScript and full stack, you know, building out front ends with technologies like Angular and React, and back ends with a lot of the different database technologies that are out there. But then when we're working with a lot of the larger companies, their biggest problem these days is actually taking advantage of everything that's offered in the cloud. Some of them are still trying to move to the cloud, and we can help them get there and actually be cloud native, which means you're not just taking your code that was sitting under your desk or in a server farm somewhere and moving it out to AWS or Azure or GCP, which are the big cloud providers, out to their server farms, not just porting it over, but actually trying to leverage all the services they provide. Because once you get to the cloud, not only can you have all of your stuff live out there, but it can provide you with a lot of existing features that you want to do. As an example, you know, everyone's talking these days about machine learning and being able to mine unstructured data, things like email messages and giant, vast, just data lakes of data that's being thrown in there with no structure to it. And machine learning can mine that and give you insight into that. But you don't have to do that yourself. You don't have to write, you know, differential equations and mathematics to make that happen. Someone else has done that, and it's offered as a service within the cloud. So a lot of our clients want our help leveraging those services and tethering them into their existing infrastructure and their existing ecosystem. So we do a lot of that type of work as well. That's probably, I would say, at least 50% of the work we do, as well as automation. So the other thing that's a struggle for everyone these days is, okay, you write code, looks great, but how do you then move that through the life cycle from a developer writing the code to, you know, a QA team making sure that, you know, it's as bug free as it can get and that it's ready for production, all the way to a go live where you're launching it. That used to be something that would happen on a cycle. Like every 6 months we're going to launch the next version of code, but that's no longer acceptable by any users, whether it's a business to business user or a consumer facing product that you have.
Right.
Now you have to be able to just create versions when you need, anytime. They say that Amazon has a new version of their code go live every 3 seconds. At least that's the last statistic I heard. So it's constantly evolving and changing, and that's a different process, a different way to handle software development. So there's a term called continuous integration, continuous delivery, CI/CD, and that talks about how you automate, and it's a whole methodology for how you automate a lot of what used to be very manual processes, so that you can push code out when you want to, instead of, on a really slow cycle.
So how important is it as an entrepreneur? Let's just say in any industry, and as an entrepreneur, how important is it to have access to a software company for your business? How important is that? And we'll get into, as a software engineer, what the process would be like to, learn more. But specifically, if an entrepreneur is watching this now and they're like, all right, I got a business that I'm launching, I need X, Y, and Z. Why is it important for any entrepreneur to have access to someone like you?
Well, I think the good news is that when you're first launching, we have so many tools out there that we can use, as not as a software engineer, but as a business owner, as a startup. There's so many tools that you can leverage that allow you to get off the ground a lot faster and not have to be highly technical to be able to do it. Let's just say,
the untechnical savvy people out there who look at it like, I run away from it, but they know it's a necessity. We don't want to pin them in a corner and say, you got to learn this. They go crazy. But like, what is some of the information that they need to know, whether it be, not necessarily them doing it themselves, but some information they need to be privy to so they can go out and, kind of outsource it?
Yeah, I think more than anything is to either find someone like us or a lot of other kind of independent people that are out there that can help you to start to understand how you're going to need to operate within the whole cloud ecosystem, because it's there and it's really necessary. Especially, one of the great things about it is you can provision things out in the cloud that you're going to need, whether you're starting whether you need a website, or you need some software to run some aspect of your business, or it's your own product that you're building because you're doing something technical. You can provision everything that you need in the cloud for very, very inexpensively, or even free in a lot of cases when you start. And then what's nice is as you scale, the cloud can control all of that for you. So if you scale really fast, which means that you're not you don't have users that are not paying you. Hopefully you have some sort of revenue stream coming in. As you scale, you don't have to worry about scaling beyond what you can handle, because the cloud can handle that for you. It can allow you to scale as fast as you want, and it's got redundancy. So if a server goes down in Oregon, another one is there supporting you in New York. So that aspect of it is very important as you grow your business. But at the same time, there's so many companies, software as a service providers out there, where you can, through your browser, log on, register, and leverage what they offer from a business perspective to get you started right away. Everything from, we use Gusto for payroll, and it's out of the box, super easy to use. You don't need to be technical, and you can be running payroll for your company, right off the get-go, and creating invoices for your customers, especially if you have B2B invoices. And there's a lot of great, QuickBooks is out there, and there's a ton of different marketing tools that you can take advantage of, and of course things like Wix or Squarespace for websites. So there's a lot of things you can do out of the box leveraging software as a service. And the cool thing is they're already in the cloud, so they will scale with you as well as you grow your business. So now more than any other time in the history of mankind, we have all of these opportunities to reach the exact market that you want to among the billions of people in the world. You can find that niche that would be interested in whatever it is that you're creating and selling way easier than we ever could before.
Right.
which is exciting. I mean, there's a lot of hope in that. You know, no matter what you're trying to do as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of hope that you can start something right off the get-go and have some success to get you past that kind of negative worry of, oh, I can't do this or it's impossible. There's just by walking down that road to begin with and getting that first dollar bill framed on your wall, you can get there a lot faster these days.
Absolutely. That's very informative. So let's also jump into what happens on the outside. You know, a lot of times you get into the transition, you take the first step, you start your transition, then you start to go through the aches and the pains of that transition, right? You got your first 6 months, you're killing it, and you hit that wall, and you're saying to yourself, okay, how am I going to keep going forward? How am I going to keep pushing through? But you also have a whole nother life. You have family, you have kids, you have responsibilities on the outside that also weigh heavily on what you've just, pretty much done as your passion, as your purpose. You poured all of it into it. How does one balance passion and family, and how does that testimony from you, how does that necessarily work to your benefit, waking up, going to work, and being able to balance the two?
Yeah, it's funny because especially now, while we're all a lot more isolated than we ever have been, and we're leveraging this technology that's been around for more than a decade now of being able to work remotely. But so many people are now in that boat where they're more isolated than before and having to work remotely. And that can be a benefit, and it can also be a curse. And the benefit of it is, a lot more time to spend with the family. And beyond that, I've done work, like a full day's work out on my boat in the Sound fishing for salmon, which is pretty awesome. It's great to, on a Tuesday in the summer, be able to be out in the sunshine, enjoying everything that the Pacific Northwest has to offer while still getting done the things that I needed to get done. So that side of it, having that flexibility, is pretty unique and incredible, and it's great. And I was there with my kids, so it's great to be able to spend more time with family that's not necessarily just on the weekends or during vacations. You can do that a lot more freely now than ever before, and really kind of balance your day however you want to do. But then the flip side of that is that the switch never really turns off either. I know so many people, and I've had to make a point of when I'm gonna go have dinner with the family, and then maybe we're gonna do something after dinner together, of putting my phone down in my room, and it's not even there, so I can't hear it buzz, because it's so easy to just, get that message, take a look at it, and, oh, it's important. Okay, I got to get to it right away. And in your head, it's probably more important than it really is. And it probably could have waited a couple of hours while you focused on your family life or your personal time. But it definitely invades. Like right now, our professional life does invade more than any other time into our personal life. And so you have to draw that line for yourself. However, that line needs to be drawn. For some people, they love it, and they're kind of always in that mindset anyway, and they can balance it however they see fit. But for me, I have to make a conscious effort of turning off that phone.
Right. And I also say, that's a huge point of understanding that it's not just about family balance as well. You can balance that with anything that is on the other side of the coin of your passion. And that could be, athletics, that can be taking care of your mom, anything that is a priority. And you have now to decide between priorities, trying to figure out how exactly can you, leverage both sides and be, 100 on both sides.
Yeah.
And it's impossible. It's an impossibility to give 100% to two different entities, but it's also possible for you to go through a process of analyzing what deserves what, and how much do you deserve to give, and what you're getting back. If you're passionate about this purpose that you're going into, and this industry, this entrepreneurship, So what is it giving back to you? And that's a lot of times that people get a misconception of what passion they've picked based on their desire, based on their ego, and they've jumped into this pond of piranhas, and they didn't realize that they didn't even see they thought they were fish. And it looked good from the outside, and you get in there and it's like, this was not what I thought it was going to be. So everyone has to understand the grass is not always going to be green, but you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared for, that other side of the coin that may not fit, but there's still a compromise. There's still a priority there that you got to, balance out. And people need to understand that, it's not going to be an easy decision. And I think a lot with our messaging with the podcast in your transition is going to be tough times, tough decisions to make, whether it be, getting away from the circle that you're in currently that's bringing no value to you, getting away from the people who are distracting you from you being creative and being in a creative mindset where you want to do things that can benefit you, and people want to push you away from those things that benefit you. And so it's an awareness process as well. You being aware of these things that are taking you away from the things that you like or you love or you're passionate about, but also having the time to analyze, is this truly my passion? Is this something I really, really want? Is this something that I would put over my family? Is this something that I'll put over my kids, my friends? Is this something that's giving something back to me that my friends and my family are not giving back to me? Because a lot of times we choose family and friends over passion, and our family and our friends are the ones that are taking from us. And the passion is the one thing that is feeding us. And we run away from it because the thing that's feeding us is we don't see as more important as our family because of what family essentially means in our society. So I think it's amazing that you're able, to balance the two. And it's always important for our guests to reiterate that to all of the audience members out there that's listening, that it's important to balance, it's important to prioritize, and also it's important to take accountability that there's going to be some type of reward, risk, and consequence for whatever decision that you do make.
Totally. And I think one of the neat things is that with, at least if you go down the road of starting something on your own and you get to the point where you are able to make a living for yourself doing it, it offers so much freedom in terms of your time. And it's still a lot of time. You still have to put in the work and the time. I'm not saying that at all, but you get more flexibility, and no longer is a 9-to-5 job where you're commuting in, sitting in a office or a cube and working until the lunch bell and then going until, so it's great to have that flexibility. That is an incredible freedom to have. That's, I think, very unique too to our culture and our lifestyle, and I love it. So when you're talking about that balance, I've made it a point of really setting that example for my kids and teaching them about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, because I hope that they'll take a similar track and that they'll find a way to create their own balance, and that they won't get caught up in what I think is kind of an antiquated way of working, where it kind of goes back to the industrial revolution versus what we're in now, which is more of the technology revolution, I'd call it. And I think a large part of our workforce is still stuck in that older way of doing things. Obviously, there's other professions where you have to be there when your customers are there, especially when you're customer facing in person type professions. But in so many other lines of work, there's an opportunity to do it yourself, your own way, and have control your own destiny, which I hope from a work-life balance standpoint that I can pass down.
Right. Well, before we wrap it up, let's talk a little bit about your passions outside of software, the outdoors, and your connection with nature, and what you think about that importance as well, as far as us getting back to the roots, who we are, human beings. We also want to, on this podcast, connect to the spirituality, holistic side, nature, and also bring back to those people who do appreciate those things what they actually go through when they're, you know, meditating through their nature or what, you know, what have you. We just want to know, like, what is that process? Because everybody has their own little happy place. They have their own little getaway. Like, what is your peaceful place? What do you do as far as the outdoors is concerned that kind of keeps you grounded with the mentality that you have not only, you know, did all the things that you wanted to do, but you did them the way you wanted to do them, and you did them in a peaceful manner without really, you know, stepping on toes and, you know, doing people bad, but how this outdoors, you know, this connection with nature played a part.
Yeah, I mean, I was raised that way. So I was raised in a tent most of my summers with my dad, and grew a deep appreciation for it. For me, it's a reset, especially when you're off the grid. And these days, back then there was no, you know, cell phones, but these days, kind of having that gone for a while and just being out there with, you know, with completely natural surroundings where there's nothing from today's world. That's really refreshing, and it's a good reset. And I find so many metaphors, and I mean, you were using them just a moment ago. You talked about jumping in a pond and thinking it's fish, and it's, you know, it's piranhas, and that's kind of a natural metaphor, right? So as I've, you know, taken my time, and most of my recreational time is spent in the outdoors, whether it's hiking and backpacking or skiing or fishing or any of a ton of different opportunities we have, especially out here in Seattle, to do that. I find so many metaphors, and it gives me a chance to kind of remove myself from the day-to-day grind and really think about things at a bigger level, where, you know, maybe something that's really bothering me isn't all that important, actually. Like, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter that much. You know, it's gonna, in 3 weeks from now, I'm not even gonna care about it. I'll barely remember it. But when you're in your office all day long and you're working, you're getting stuff done, it can really kind of, it can exaggerate those feelings. And so for me, that's a way that I can step back from those feelings and really reset and find those metaphors. You know, a great one that I like is, and it goes back to what you were originally asking around, like, how you kind of start that transition. To me, aside from having someone that you can be in it with, and someone that's a partner to you as you go through that process, another thing is, so many times we bump up against a roadblock and it just seems like a barrier you just can't get past. And from a natural metaphor standpoint, a lot of times I'm hiking, if I'm not on a trail, if I'm just kind of going through bushwhacking, we call it, you're just going through the forest, kind of making your own trail. Usually you have a map and you're getting to some lake that's somewhere in the mountains, like an alpine lake. And a lot of times you see in, like, you know, in front of you a thicket, and it just looks impossible. It's like an impossible barrier. You're not going to get through it. You're going to have to go a mile around it. But if you simply walk up to it, a lot of times there's a path through it. It's not as bad as it looks from afar. So if you walk up to it, you just take every step you can until you get there. A lot of times you find a way right through it, and you can continue in a more direct route. And that metaphor to me is so important when it comes to business, especially when you are transitioning and just taking those first steps. Is it seems so hard, and you have those negative thoughts, and this thing hits you, like you get rejected in your first pitch, and it just seems like it's not even worth it. But take the next step. You're not at that thicket yet. Take the next step and go all the way as far as you can until you really hit a barrier. And a lot of times you find it's not there, and you can find your way through it. And, you know, there's going to be 10 more thickets past that you're going to have to get through, but at least it keeps you moving forward, and it keeps that positivity.
Man, I love it. Oh man. And that's the message that we were looking for. That's the message we're looking for right there. Now, as we conclude, I want to thank Mr. Mike Green for his time and his expertise in the software industry, but also giving us testimony on how he gets it done. And Mike, is there any way that these people can reach out to you if they want to, you know, get your services, whether it be, you know, email or LinkedIn or anything like that? Could you, you know, give the people a way to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. But not just for, you know, it's great if something works out and they need help on the software side, happy to help. But beyond that, if there's anything I can do to to help people, make connections for people, do something outside of my business, my day job. I'm all for helping people get through their transition, and I'm wide open to connecting with people and just finding a way to assist. So the easiest way to reach me is just my email. It's Mike@Cirrus7, which is my company.com. It's SIRRUS and then the number 7, Mike@Cirrus7.com. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. You can find me, Mike Green. If you type Mike Green in Seattle, you'll probably get like 100 people, but I'm one of them. And if you see my company name, that's me, and would be happy. I would say on LinkedIn, and that's another thing that I think is important for anyone who's making any kind of a transition is, aside from, finding someone you can partner with and finding some mentors, it's also starting to build your relationships. I mean, people talk about networking, and that's what it is, but it's really about building relationships and finding other like-minded people that you can be connected to. I love LinkedIn for that. For me, what I've done in order to make that powerful is I only connect with people on LinkedIn if I know them or I've had a conversation with them. So what I'd ask is, if you do want to reach out and connect with me, I would love to do it, but start with a message or an email and let's have a conversation. And then I'm happy to connect with you on LinkedIn after that.
For sure. And let me also add testimony to everything you just said. Is, Mike and I are partners going on about a good 10 months now, working on some extraordinary things. And when I tell you everything he just said about helping is 100% true and right, and he's helped me in ways that I can't even explain to you all.
And same back towards me
on the Zoom. But Mike is he's very, very genuine about answering questions, helping out in any capacity that he can. So don't hesitate to reach out to him, and don't hesitate to check us out on Mission Matters. The podcast is live. We're on all platforms. I thank you all for checking us out. The Transition Podcast, Man to God, and I'm your host, Rashad McCants, and we will be with you next episode. Thank you so much. Peace.